wanted to share some reflections around how to communicate with both clients and prospects, because I think it's one of the more underrated areas of an agency. Because well, not underrated, but one of the areas that's maybe less thought of, because people don't realize that I think the style of communication, the cadence of communication that you have with your clients makes a really big difference in your impression on them and the kind of professionalism you show or not. But also, I think being too professional can remove a lot of the potential relationship there. And the relationship is extremely valuable. And it's not just about the number of touch points, but also the cadence and demeanor with which you talk to them. And one of my biggest principles has been that of kind of reflecting or mirroring the style of communication that they have with you. And so one of the things which I try to do is I will try to match the formality that they have with me. If they write me an email saying, Dear João, this is the what thing I've put together, blah, 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 kind regards, whatever. I will return the email in the same kind of format. Now, if they write me an email saying, hi, thanks for the proposal, awesome chat, super excited to get started, full stop, no line breaks, just one line email, something simple like that, I will reply in the same way. And I think that makes people feel more comfortable, because if they are willing to go a little bit more informal with you, you should match that. Never go below, right? Never be more informal than them, because that looks unprofessional. But also, you don't need to be too formal. If they're really informal and you are too formal, then you you might feel a little bit impersonal. At least this is just from my experience. These are just lessons from my experience, and you take them with whatever grain of salt you want. But at the end of the day, I think building that personal relationship with them makes a huge difference in business, because if you do good work, fostering a personal relationship will really kind of carry how much they will fight for you when it comes to testimonials and getting referrals and things like that. If you build a stronger relationship, it becomes much more likely that they bring you more business, that they stay with you longer, that they work with you better, that they cut you more slack when you need it, right? So, when you mess up on the delivery of something, if you have a really strong personal relationship and you go and say, listen, I'm really sorry, we messed up on this a little bit because XYZ things happen, because things will go wrong. There's no point building a business predicated on the assumption that everything goes perfectly. That's usually a recipe for disaster. And creating that slack in your personal relationship for things to go wrong and for you to make a mistake and say, listen, I'm sorry. And the difference is them being a little bit put off or totally put off or making a bad impression that lasts. Trust is hard to accumulate, right? And so they might lose trust very fast. But if you've built that bank of goodwill with them just by building more of a personal relationship, when you go and say, sorry, listen, I'm so sorry, and you really apologize for whatever mistake you made, it makes much, you basically soften the impact, you soften the blow of whatever, little misstep you had. And so I think it's something not enough people think about, is try and mirror the cadence that they have with you. Try and reply to them fast. And this is one of the reasons why I used to speak to clients through Telegram and WhatsApp and personal messaging applications, because I thought it was fast, it's convenient, whatever, especially for them. But then I realized actually it's not as fast and convenient, and it's also it shouldn't be on personal messaging. You want to be professional but personal, but also too personal can get a bit weird. Now, there's some clients which have very strong preference about communication platform, but I found one of the more kind of interesting things to do was to try and centralize that on one platform. So, for example, we use Slack. So if you work with us as a development agency, we onboard our clients into a Slack project space, and we basically have a paid workspace where we can connect with other workspaces and basically make single channels for a project. And that, I think, actually brings a lot of value, because you should reply to your clients immediately or as soon as possible. And so that workspace always gets highest priority replies. And I also put my assistant there, and I basically I've instructed her, if I don't reply to something, ping me about it and send something in the channel saying, I think João missed this message. I'm going to message him, but rest assured, I'll make sure he sees this. You want to shorten the time for them to hear back from you. And this is particularly on the client side, but on the prospect side as well, you want to somehow make sure your prospects are highlighted. Now it's a little bit harder because prospects won't be onboarded into Slack or anything. And so that might be via emails, that might be via WhatsApp. There's different channels that you might be speaking to prospects with, but you just want to make sure you have those names like top of mind. You might want to pin those chats. I do that sometimes. But you basically want to shape your environment around making it the easiest to reply to them as fast as possible, most noticeable, remove other notifications from your notification center and get it so that it's just like, one of the best things that I've done is I mute a lot of group chats. I mute them because, I mute especially the big ones, which just get all kinds of notifications. So the notifications that I get are always messages that I want to reply to fast. And obviously a lot of them are personal messages or not necessarily clients or prospects, but when there is a client or prospect, that gets my attention relatively quickly. And I want to react quick to notifications, but I also don't want to be always like glued to my phone with my notifications constantly going off. So I'm quite particular about which notifications actually go through. That I think has been a good choice and has yielded a lot of like just better operations overall. I also think you want to make things easily accessible to them. So like Slack lets you put pins and stuff. I mean, this isn't meant to be a Slack ad. Like you can do this with other software. It just happens to be what I use. But the idea is you want to make them comfortable. And then also, I think like carve out time to create personal relationships. If you're in the same city, try and go meet up with them. This is an ambition and a goal that I have for this year is to meet every single one of my clients in person. And I've managed to do that. I run a remote company, bear in mind, right? But I've managed to meet every single client in person with the exception of one of my current clients, bear in mind, like of this year, not all time. And I want to keep that up. I want to do more of it. I want to get them more gifts, things like that. I want to like meet up with them and then find out more about them as people and basically foster that like relationship always, without overstepping. And I think there's some nuance to that. And you have to find the balance there. But even if you meet them personally, like in real life, even if it's just in a professional context, I still think you have an amazing opportunity to create an impression of who you are as a person. And that is in your appearance, in your cadence, in the way you carry yourself. All of these things matter. And I think they add up to actually quite a lot of the impression that you make. And you'd be surprised how much business that can drive by just creating better relationships with those people. And bear in mind as well, like happy clients are the best salespeople. So like it's good to go networking, it's good to get deals from your network and whatever, but the best deals are going to come from your clients. So that's the network which you should really focus on, like making sure you have awesome relationships with all of them. And some people are more open to it, some people just want to keep it professional, they don't really want to engage in that, and that's totally fine, but you want to balance it. And yeah, don't be afraid of being a little bit personal sometimes, asking personal questions. I think it's good. Give it a go. Obviously, don't overstep. Don't go too far on things, and try and like read the situation. But don't treat them as just clients. Basically, treat them as people, not clients. Treat users as people, not users. Like, don't be impersonal and understand where they're coming from, and try and cooperate as much as possible. Take responsibility for things. I think it's a really, really good like opportunity. Like, never blame clients for things, or avoid that as much as possible. Some clients will be difficult, granted, but as much as possible, you should be able to see and recognize your own faults and responsibility in things and see like, I should have done better. Anyway, that's just my take on like how to interact with clients and prospects, how to communicate better with them. And this is specifically in interactions. I think like there's a whole other playbook that I have on operations and like communication management. Like client management is a whole field of study that it's a can of worms that's much more than just interactions. But I think the start is the way that you feel when you talk to them. Do they feel like they're speaking to a corporate robot? That's you're some like corporate sales rep that's part of some huge company and like you're just a number on some dashboard to them? Or do they feel like you're talking to somebody who's real, like a person? Because at the end of the day, that's especially when you're starting, if you're starting out and if you're at the scale that I'm at, like I've got some little rinky-dink agency that does like a couple $100,000 a year. It's the whole point is that it's a boutique, right? So they want to work with you. They want to work with people. They don't want to work with some like no face, no name, big corporate entity. And you can't, like, you have to make them feel like that. And so don't act like you're a big corporate, because you're not. Make sure you definitely want to act professional. You definitely want to act serious, but be genuine and authentic in your relationships. And that can take you a really long way, at least in my experience. And also, at least what I find is, oftentimes I work with companies much larger than my own, or in startups who are successful, or at least to some degree. And that gives me the opportunity to learn from them a lot of times. And if I develop a personal relationship, you also have every once in a while the small chance of creating a mentor out of that relationship, right? Like, you get to observe and be a part of their journey in their startup. And that is a really, really awesome opportunity that you have as an agency founder, because your entire job is to help other companies. Do not underestimate that power of being exposed to that mentorship. I think I've been able to learn some really, really valuable lessons through these people. And like, sometimes I knew these people before and things like that, but until, like, working with them provided an entry into their world, right? Like a reason to speak to them on a regular cadence. And that's really valuable, and you should make the most of it. And you can only do that if they're willing to see you, to some degree at least, as a personal relationship, not just a work one. Yeah, that's my 2 cents. Anyway, today I spent a lot of the day out yesterday. It was a birthday party. Went to the beach, and I might put a clip of that. Nothing too crazy.